Yay!
Well, hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in to HETMA Presents. Today, HETMA presents The Road to 10K. We're here to continue the discussion of HETMA's year-long journey of professional, personal, and community growth. My name is Ryan Gray, and I will be your host. We've made it to our second month, August. August's theme is Merging Lanes, Connect to Grow. Growth doesn't happen in isolation. Emphasize the power of community, peer-to-peer learning, mentorship, and showing up for others. Build your peer network. And those statements come together to set us up for a month of talking about how our connections with others build our own personal, professional, and community growth. And lucky for us, this month we have a highly distinguished panel to discuss this topic with us today. People that I know to be involved in building their network and mentoring. And one of the cool parts about it is because if they weren't into building their network, I don't know how I would have ever known or met these three people. So thank you for being with us. Let's go around the horn. First, Mr. Tim Albright of AVNation. How are you today, sir?
I am fantastic. How are you, sir?
I'm hanging tough for 7 a.m. my time, which is not usually my on time. But, you know, I've learned the coffee tricks of the trade for broadcasters. And you mentioned
coffee is our friend.
Doing one of the things you're not supposed to do, which is before the show we were talking about, you mentioned you're doing more podcasts this week than you can even remember ever doing.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I've been doing yours. I was not half an hour ago. I was on with our friends at Rave for their weekly one. A young man named Pablo from Krakow, Poland. I was on a show with him, and then I covered one of our other AVNation shows this week that I normally don't do. So it's been a lot of talking for me this week.
So like I say, when I tried to give you the moniker of the voice of the industry and you tried to turn it down before, but I feel like you are keeping my point of view up. So thank you for proving me right. I appreciate that. And Ms. Britt Yenser, the HETMA board, and I almost said Monravian because you have your Monravian thing behind you, but of Northampton Community College in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. How are you today?
I am here. Thank you.
Yes, and you are in the semester's about to start crunch time. True?
That is so true. So we are finalizing a whole bunch of installations and training faculty and just getting ready for the school year to start. So it's a busy time, but one of my favorite times. I love the hustle and bustle and getting ready for the students to come back.
This is what we do, but it also means an hour of your time is valuable, and we appreciate you giving an hour of time to the rest of the community to do this today.
Of course. I'm happy to be here, guys.
All right. And my friend and your friend, Chris Dieterich, most recently of the University of Arizona Medical School in Phoenix, Arizona, and the former regional groups chair of HETMA, who is now an educational representative for Biamp. So first, congratulations on that move, Mr. Dieterich. How are you doing? And what's the latest with you?
I mean, you pretty much summed it up. Definitely a big change for me in my professional life. I was with the university for over 12 years, kind of built that campus from the ground up, and it was hard to make the change. But I said, you know what? I think it's time. We had some growth opportunities over here at Biamp, and so I took on the West U.S. region education account manager role, and I'm about 7 days in. So I know absolutely nothing, but I'm slowly taking it in day by day.
Nice. Well, I'm sorry to tell you that Yavapai College is, of course, one of your customers, and we get after our reps hard around here. So, you know what I'm saying? You're now going to really see what it's like on that side.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So yeah, then this month's theme in the Road to 10K, right, is all about, you know, making connections and helping other people, both for your own benefit and for the benefit of others. So this is like my favorite topic to talk about almost. And it's kind of a testament that, you know, behind the scenes, I had messed up the invites for this show and accidentally scheduled it for next month instead of this month. And then when I realized that, it was like 48 hours ago. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I got to throw together a great panel for this topic. But look at, you build your network and look at the people you can get to come on. It just shows how it works. So Tim, let's start with you. I think one of the things that your reputation is someone who takes pride in making connections between people that like you think could help each other.
Yeah.
And the joke is that you know everybody in the industry. So is this something that you do naturally, something that just comes to you, or something that you do purposefully? And kind of what is your story of that sort of networking?
I've said for years, I am naturally inclined as an introvert. And I know Brett and I have had that conversation a couple of different times. So no, this is not natural. Probably about 20 years ago, before I ever started AVNation, right about the time I was getting into the industry, I picked up Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it took me 2 or 3 times to read it to really, first of all, get over the initial reaction of I'm not going to talk to people. I'm not going to ask them, But the more I read it, the more it really became about how you can help others. It wasn't, right? It's not, how to win friends. And it's a catchy title, and obviously it's a popular one. But the real essence of that book is, how do you get to the point where you can find out about somebody so you can help them, right? And I'm like, okay, that I can buy into. And so I started developing that in my own professional life, right? And started, exercising and leveraging some of those talents. And that book and some others that have come on along since then have really helped me, kind of discover the ability to not just get out of people, but sort of like micro interview people when I'm talking to them. And you're right. One of my favorite things is go, you know what, Ryan, you really should meet Tom over here, because you guys have got a connection, or you would work well together. That is actually one of my favorite things, because I may know a lot of people, but I am not the smartest person in the room. But I know the smartest people in the room. And that's one of my favorite things, is to connect the smart people and then just kind of watch from afar as they go do magic things. So yeah, that's not natural. Certainly a skill that I've developed over the last 20 or 20 years or so. But it is one of my favorite parts of my job now.
That's all. Yeah, I agree. And so I love you telling that story, because I think there's sometimes, things in this topic that feel like, well, they come natural or they don't. Like you said, well, extroverted people do this automatically and nobody else can really do it. And the idea that networking and connecting others is a skill that you practice just like any other professional skill. But turning it to that, like, how can I help others? And then in turn, let that come around. Like, I love that. I love that message. So you mentioned, you've had that conversation with Britt about being an introvert. So, I think, Britt, also, you're someone who I think would be most comfortable in their pajama pants at home, watching a old school VHS movie, of which I know you have a great collection of, which is cool. But I don't know if they did the rankings at Infocom this year, but I believe you were something like the most active Twitter or person on X at the Infocom before, when they did a ranking based not on posts, but on your interaction with people's posts. And it's something that you've done pretty purposefully. So how has that come about for you? What would you share with people about, about being a person that makes connections with others?
Yeah, so there's a joke I've seen online that's introvertuous. I don't want to be here, but if not me, who? So I'll do it. So yeah, no, I'm definitely am an introvert in that, I feel much more energetic when I have time to myself and I have quiet time. Being in large crowds, being around other people, can be draining to me and my energy. But that said, it doesn't mean that I don't like to connect. And what I like to do, especially as an introvert, is to connect individually and in small groups in authentic ways. Yep. And so when we talk about, social media and being popular on social media, well, to me, what I'm doing is I'm actually online connecting one-to-one or one to a few in these posts, which is actually my comfort zone of communication.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you're ability to you use the word genuine, and I feel like almost like that's something that overlays this entire concept, right? Which is if you're doing it and it's fake, it doesn't really count. You won't make the kind of connections that last. And that idea of being genuine, and also I know I'll ask like let's follow up on that, because it took me a little while to accept that it's okay for there to be levels of genuine, right? Like it is okay for there to be parts of me. I don't have to bear everything about me in a professional setting and not feel like I'm being genuine in an area. Like I can still protect myself in certain ways. How would you balance that when people hear the word like, oh, you have to go out and be genuine, and they think I don't have any desire to go out and do that in my professional world? How do you balance, what it means to be a genuine person?
Well, to me, being genuine this is my authentic and natural response. Like, regardless of who you are or what the context is. Now, mind you, like in a professional setting, I might polish it a little bit because we're being professional, but like, this is how I'm going to naturally respond to you. I'm not thinking about it too hard. Like, I'm not going to chat GPT and saying, like, please rephrase this thing for me. Like, no, it's just, this is what I have to say to you. I said it.
Britt has given me a fantastic new idea.
I've got a whole developer working on merging Chat GPT with, Zoom and an AI thing where I never have to go to a Zoom meeting again. My Chat GPT just listens and participates as me, and but that doesn't feel very genuine now, does it?
It doesn't.
No.
But it sounds fun.
Yeah, don't be the AI version of yourself. Just be yourself. And I love that. I love it. All right. Chris, so you took something that HETMA started a little bit ago, which was regional events or our road shows, and took that on for like 2 years and brought it to a level that it never would have been before that. I met you the first time when you hosted a Crestron event at your college, and like you could tell immediately, it's like, yeah, well, we can learn about gear anywhere. I want to meet the people in Arizona that do what we do. So, and now you're moving into a role where building relationships with people is a key thing. So how do you go about building relationships? How do you see that? And kind of in moving into this world of business development, how do you balance business development with, building authentic relationships with people?
Well, 7 days into the role, I got all the answers, right? But no, I'm
That was an
figuring out as I
authentic
go.
answer.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate that. That was
100%
good.
authentic. Yes. And kudos to you, Ryan, because going back to, I want to say it was InfoComm 2022, I don't even know what HETMA was. I'm like, what do you keep saying? What is this weird acronym I keep hearing? And then you gave me that card, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this is a really cool organization I should probably be a part of. And so that's when I officially kind of started jumping in, and immediately I'm like, great, now I got to join Zoom meetings with my camera on, and there's like 50 people there. I'd rather just kind of listen and work, get out of my shell. But it blossomed into just a love for kind of working with everyone within the organization because we shared the same passion, right? I think we all enjoyed what we were doing within the industry, and we wanted to kind of reach out and connect and see what other people were doing. And that's really what led me into just kind of slowly taking on a little bit more and saying, you know what, let's run for regional groups. Let's see if, I'll take on a new challenge, get out of my comfort zone again. Let's put on a few shows. And I think the first one, Arizona, could have went a little better. I do not like public speaking, but I adapted to it. And I think I'm okay enough to where you won't see me stuttering on stage, but inside I'm like, I can't wait to get off the stage, right? But it was a great, great experience for me. I really missed putting on those shows. And the last one in Chicago, we had a little bit of a rain issue that unfortunately changed our plans slightly, but I still think the show went great. And I think you can kind of see that change from the first one I did to the third one. And I think it was just a little bit more of a well-oiled machine. So it was a great time. But really, to answer your question, I'm still trying to figure out all the answers and how I can balance business development because it's a big shift, right? At first we were peers, and I still think we are, but now I'm kind of on the other side of the table, coming in discussing product offerings or solutions, and so I think that's going to be a big adjustment for me. But at the end of the day, to what Britt and Tim said, just be genuine. I don't want to change who I am just because I'm in a different role. In fact, I just want to leverage the relationships I've already built just to, meet with people, let them know that if I have a solution, great. And if I don't, great. But at the same time, we're still friends and really a family in this industry.
Yeah, and you never know. Again, I'll say, reference something Tim said before we started, right? Is those relationships matter because you never know where people are going to be in the industry and what
Yep,
changes are going to happen, right?
100%.
People can be wearing a different polo from year to year, but the human is still the human. And yeah, I
Exactly.
agree. So
100%.
I'll throw this. So it's easy for me to launch, not easy, but I can throw questions in this topic to you guys about the things I know about you. But the cool thing is there's a lot more that I don't know. One of the key words in this month's Merging Lanes is about mentorship, and the value. I know the value that mentorship has been in my career, both being mentored and having the opportunity to do formal and informal mentoring with other people. So I'll throw it out to the group. What has mentorship meant for you? And is there anything you'd like to share with people as we're sort of, trying to kick off a conversation about this for this month to prime people to be thinking about, mentorship instead of just, having another month they go through and don't change anything. Maybe this is the month where, getting a mentor or becoming a mentor can become a reality.
I will say that for my journey experiencing mentorship, one thing that was really valuable was recognizing that I was looking for a particular skill set or a particular piece of information, and I was not necessarily going to get that from my own department or even my own field. And so being willing to reach out to someone you might not expect, and being in higher education, that is one of the easiest things we can do. So especially for the higher ed HETMA members, like, listen up here. One of the first people I reached out to for mentorship when I started working in higher ed was our head of admissions, because I knew that I wanted my team to have really good customer service and really good interpersonal skills. And I look around the technical people and I'm like, this is something they need to learn. So let me look outside of the technical people. Who on my campus is really good at customer service? Admissions. That's their whole thing, right? So, look around, find the expert, and then just reach out to them. So Mr. Rogers had a quote, look for the helpers, right? I think a lot of people innately do want to help. So, I just reached out and said, hey, can I buy you a coffee at the cafe and ask you a couple questions about customer service? And we met the next week. She was so excited to do that. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I would say, first of all, don't wait for perfection. Don't wait for the perfect mentor or mentee. The other thing is in that is to just start, and I mean that both from the mentor and mentee side. If you are in your very beginning stages of your career, there is going to be someone, unless you are 7 days in, Chris, there is going to be someone who is newer than you. Start giving back very early in your career. You are not too young. You are not too inexperienced. You are not too anything to give back. You know something that somebody else does not know. Be willing, be open to sharing everything you have, because there's a couple of things here. Number one, you are not the holder of unique and special knowledge, right? We there is nobody in this world, unless you're creating some quantum physics thing that is way beyond my understanding. We all have access to the same information. It's how you deliver it, and how you deliver the context to that information. But the second thing is just start, right? Just begin. Don't wait for perfection.
I'll echo that, where I couldn't agree more. I have, sometimes people who are younger, technician level people, and I will encourage them, and there are there are things to share here. Can I and do that? Like, can I hook you up with this person? Because I think and they have that feeling of like, well, I'm not an example to follow. I'm not a this, or none of us are. You know what I'm saying? And you don't you're not to help another person to say there's something I can mentor. You're not saying I am the person. I am the example. I am perfect, like you said. But the multiplier effect comes in what people can teach each other, and don't withhold that from people. You know what I'm saying? Don't withhold it.
And I do just want to jump in real quick because I recently saw a short clip of an interview with someone from Girls Who Code. And one thing that she had talked about was the teachers in Girls Who Code were noticing that these like young girls would call a teacher over and they had a blank screen in front of them and they would say like, can you help me? And to the teacher at first, it looked like, oh, she didn't even start. This is a blank page. But if they hit undo on the computer, there was a whole line of code that girl had written, but she was too scared because she wanted it to be perfect. So instead of calling the teacher over and saying, can you look at my code, they would delete it and feel like it wasn't perfect, so I can't show it. So just to like speak to what you're talking about of this like perfectionist thing, like we see that not only in women, but it starts in girlhood. And so I really would encourage women especially to, like Tim said, just start. And like Ryan said, like don't seek perfection. Like you're not a blank page and you have so much value. And I want you to show up with that value.
And that finding acceptance when you do is such a key thing, right? That like if you have somebody that's working on something and they're 50-50, the affirmation of the 50 that they've accomplished is sometimes worth more than the help on the remaining 50. And so, yeah, that's a great message. I totally agree.
For me, and I can sum it up pretty easily, I think it's just you got to make the jump. You got to put yourself in a position to grow. And it took me a long time to realize that. But once I did, it almost became, I don't want to say like an addiction, but really just to challenge myself. Okay, you've done something great. Let's move up. Let's level up. Let's keep increasing our growth here within whatever I'm focused on. And so I feel like I'm not the greatest mentor. I would never consider myself a mentor. I know some people on my team would probably disagree with me on that, but I've got to echo what Britt said. It must be something in education because those admissions people, they sure are really good at what they do. And so I did the same thing with our admissions team. I loved that person, one of the most authentic leaders I've ever met in my life. But what a great example. And really just kind of took his side and just kind of wanted to learn everything he had to share. And man, was he willing to do it. So I think once you ask, you just got to get to the point that you know you need to make a change and that you want to ask and make that jump. I really don't know how else to put it. It's just getting there. It can be incredibly difficult. And for me, it was, but I'm glad I did it.
It's awesome. Yeah. And I'll echo some of what you guys have said where it's just start or just ask for help. Yeah. Just ask. There was a little bit ago, a person got promoted to a vice president level at my school, and she had come in as our director of our nursing program, and then elevated, and then moved very quickly, and so she came into that VP role, and so I set a meeting on her calendar, and when I came in, I mean, her first thing was, oh God, what are my people doing wrong for IT, right? Like her assumption was the only reason this person from IT is meeting with me is because my people must be doing something wrong. What do I need to fix? And I said, no, I'm here. I because I'm hoping, at this level, like you might be somebody that I could come bounce questions off of and do that sort of thing. And her response was, well, it almost sound like you, Chris. Well, I'm 7 days in. I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to tell you to do. And my answer was, I know you may think that, but the president just chose you. And our president doesn't do anything by accident. So there's things you know what I'm saying? You've been chosen for a reason. And that is that is the thing people need shared with, even if maybe you don't know what it is. And those are sometimes the things that can start, like two people who maybe don't really know what they're doing together can put something together that, becomes mutually beneficial. So yeah, thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for sharing on that. I appreciate it. The other, while we have a little time, the other line in how the merging lanes was written that I like is the term showing up for others. And that it's, showing up for others almost feels like is that a millennial phrase? It almost feels like something younger, like we didn't say things like that when I was growing up. And I'm now turning into one of those people that says we didn't do stuff like that when I was growing up, now that I'm in my 40s. And I said I would never be that person. And now here I am saying how much a Big Mac used to cost. Never mind. Well, I'll work out my own therapy on my own time.
It used to cost a quarter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on, a soda pop. Yeah, what we used to get for a dime. Okay, but so showing up for others. This and so I'll do one of my confessions is I think I am fantastic at asking others for favors. And then maybe not doing such a good job of making sure I am showing up for others unless they put me in a headlock and say, this is what I really need. Am I seeing people? Am I really showing up for people the way that they need? And I'm always one of those people that goes, at least if you identify it, you're halfway to the solution. So there's that. But when you guys hear the phrase showing up for others, what does that mean? How, if there's people looking at this going, showing up for others, well, I'm here, I'm around, I've shown up, or like, how does showing up advance community and peer-to-peer mentorship and those sorts of things?
For me, as a manager, when I was at the University of Arizona, that was a big change, right? I was not hired on as a manager. I was hired on as just an IT technician who would love to hide behind the screen, right? I would never be talking in front of anyone. But when I got that opportunity, I quickly learned that it's not just all about work and business. There's a connection with the team, and now that you're kind of put into a leadership role, I quickly realized that there's more than this than just the 8 to 5 day to day. We actually became really close friends, and some of the individuals that are no longer a part of that group, we still stay in touch. We're very close, but just things that are going on outside of that world, at work, at a personal level, the hardships that they're dealing with. I realized that I could really empathize with that. And that was something that I could do the same thing. If I was in the same situation and I was struggling, I had them to kind of rely on and to kind of open up to. And that was huge for my personal growth and my realization that there's a lot more to this than just the job side of it. And so for me, being there for people is just being open. The door is literally always open. Come in, let's have a discussion. I'm here to help. I certainly could be better at it, but I really the door is literally always open for me, and I will try to continue to do that even as I move into a different role.
I think that this can be really multi-layered depending on who you are. So, for me and, other women, people of color, like sometimes showing up for others means literally just showing up and letting other people see themselves in you. Because they don't typically see someone who looks like them when they watch podcasts like this or go to Infocom or whatever the case may be. I last year around the holiday season wrote an article for Higher Ed AV about going to the holiday party on your campus. Because that's showing up for your team, and if you are willing to go out into your campus community or your local community and you are personable and you're making connections, you now have become this shining light for your team where, your campus might not necessarily have connections with IT or the technical people on campus, but now they have a connection to you. So by showing up to that place, you showed up for your team. And also, this is maybe a hot take, but I think delegating might be a way to show up for others. Because I think, and I've talked to Murphy Daly about this on my podcast, not to be like, and I have a podcast too, but
I mean, who doesn't anymore,
But Murphy Daly had reminded us that Delegating doesn't mean like you push something off of your plate onto someone else's. It means that you are giving someone else the opportunity to grow, and you are giving them steps, and you are giving them resources that they might not have had otherwise in order to complete that task that you've given them. So, just showing up in their sphere and saying, "Do I have an opportunity for you?" Can be really valuable.
I love so there's a oh, I love that take. It's an important thing because there's a person on our campus that I kind of ended up in sort of a mentoring relationship because they came in a role that started to create a little chaos, and a fantastic human, lots of ideas, idea, and before you know it, all our time is being taken up. So it was like, all right, I need to get involved so I can wrangle in this chaos. Well, the outcome of that has been regular meetings and a mentorship, and this person has now been elevated to a pretty like a leadership position in one of their first times being a true supervisor. And so you get the opportunity. But a key thing we were talking about in that is delegation is a sign of trust, and showing it that way. Don't think about it as making someone else do your dirty work. You are trusting your reputation to that other person. It shows value. And if you can't do that, you're actually going to communicate the opposite. And so I love that take, that showing up for people means, like you said, give them something that they can really do well, that you are going to back them up on, and the resources to do it. And yeah, love that. Thank you.
So I agree with Britt. It's multifaceted, right? Showing up for folks is multifaceted. There's a couple things that you can do though specifically, and one is simply to ask questions. Ask what people need, and then when you ask, listen not just to what they say, but what they don't say. Especially if you're in a supervisory role. If you're not, I have a very small team that I'm directly responsible for, but in the grander community, the bigger AV community, listen to what people don't say. We have had several individuals who've gone through some pretty personal tragedies in the last 5-10 years, and simply asking what they need, and then listening to what they say and what they don't say, and then finally, if you offer, which is part of the showing up. It's their responsibility to either accept or not, right? And you do not want to force yourself or force your help or force showing up to them in any way, shape, or form. Because again, they're an autonomous person. You are as well. You're offering your help, your mentorship, whatever. If they don't accept it, they don't accept it, and then you just kind of move on. There's no big deal there. I do want to point on something that Britt said about people who are not old white guys. And I have learned through trial and error, through some pretty hard conversations, that when you look like me and in a position like I am, I have to listen even harder. And what that means for us and for AVNation and for me personally is probably about 6 or 7 years ago, had a pretty hard conversation with a very, very dear friend and colleague. And they were like, you don't have many women on your shows, and you don't have people who look like me, a person of color. And I'm like, yeah, typical old white guy responsible. Yes, of course I do. And then when I sit and reflect, I'm like, no, I didn't. So sometimes that's purposeful, to purposely listen and purposely do things, because again, I will get into a rut if I don't purposely do something. And so listening to what somebody is asking of me, listening to how I can show up for a colleague or show up for a friend, and go, okay, what can I do now purposely? Number one, is it valid, right? Is what they're asking, valid for me? And then number two, what can I do in this situation? And then putting those steps into place. Britt's right. There is a certain level of representation that, as an industry, I think that you should have, because, we all do not look, we're not old white guy. We're not all old white guys, thankfully. So let's show that. Let's demonstrate that.
I agree, and I think, like you said, there's the saying is right. You can't be what you can't see,
Yeah.
and trying to make sure that people are represented when we can have those choices. Maybe don't throw your panel together with 48 hours notice, and you can do a little bit better on that. But yeah, no. But and I would agree. The other thing I'd add, which is, something I know that a lot of us have done, is, sometimes when those opportunities kind of get thrown to the same people over and over, who can I hand this to? Who out there isn't going to get asked, or maybe would be a little bit afraid to be asked, that you can help to say, you've got good or better answers than I do. And we don't need to hear from the same people all the time. So yeah, I agree. So yeah, what am I going to learn from other old white guys? You know what I'm saying? Same old stuff I already know,
I don't know, apparently how much burgers used to cost.
It's very important. Very important.
Oh, you young people these days, you don't know what it was like. We could put ourselves through college. All right, that's awesome. Okay.
No, we couldn't. Yeah, I'm 10 years older than you, and no, we couldn't. But that's a different generation.
Well, thank you all. I love, I appreciate how the genuine way everybody's shown up to answer some of these questions and share of themselves. As we sort of look to wrap up, I'd like to go around the horn with, what looking at merging lanes and growing yourself and growing community through connection. What is I'm stealing a little bit of one of Britt's things, which is, whether it be your professor's last lecture or your 1 minute, the show is turned over to you. From your point of view, what is your advice to people in terms of, growing themselves through growing connections to other people? And then we'll got everybody think for a second. So Chris, we'll start with you. What is your advice for our listeners in terms of growing yourself through growing connections with others?
To summarize it, I might repeat it again. You got to make the jump. And I don't know if I can say this, but just do it, right? Just do it. I would have never been anywhere remotely in any of the roles that I've been with HETMA or I am now without having just to make that change. It's uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. But that means that you're moving forward. You need to break out of that shell. And it can be the simplest thing. Talk to a friend, talk to someone in HETMA, have a conversation, and just get the ball rolling. That's kind of my way to put it.
Thank you, sir. Britt?
I would leave you with the advice to not be afraid of rejection. So, when we talk about seeking out mentorship, especially, it is possible that you will reach out to someone and they will say, I'm sorry, I'm too busy to do this. Don't let that stop you. Move on to the next person. I think it's really easy to get rejected and then be like, never mind, that was the worst idea I've ever had.
Oh God, no.
I am never going out again.
Exactly.
But no, keep going, because what's meant for you will not pass you. So you will connect with the right person. Keep going.
Thank you. Mr. Albright.
Well, I've got two things. I want to jump off something that both of them said. It is my email address is tim@avnation.tv. If you are afraid, or if you don't know where to start, email me. I will respond to you, and once I get to know you, I will connect with whoever, who I think is cool. Most of them are on this call and some more. But the other thing is look, and a little bit what Britt and Chris both said about looking beyond what would be normal or natural or a normal course of mentorship. Some of my best mentors I've never met in my life, and that is through books. I mentioned Dale Carnegie, who has been dead 100 years. But that is one of my biggest sources of inspiration and mentorship. Not that I haven't had great mentors personally and in person. Absolutely, I have. But some of the deepest lessons and the ability to go back again and again, which there's a handful of books that I read annually now. look to, areas that you think that you need help in, and see what sort of books and what sort of information is out there that you can consume.
That is great advice. So let's, and I love how you guys are already jumping into it. So the final question of the day is, if people wanted to expand their networks to include you all because of what they've heard here today, how would they go about doing that? And we'll go around the horn again. Chris, thank you for being with us. I really appreciate it. How can people get connected with you and build their network by getting connected with Chris Dieterich?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Chris Dieterich, and I hate to say it, that's really all I have. And these two that are coming up are going to really show me up. I got to improve on that, but for right now, it's LinkedIn.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Thank you, Britt.
Yeah, so I'm also on LinkedIn, Britt Yenser, CTS. I am still on X. I make sure to only look at the people I'm following and nothing else. But I am Brave Brit on X. I'm also Brave Brit on Blue Sky, although I will admit I haven't logged in a while. As an introvert, I can only do so much social media, but, I'm doing my best. And then, of course, I am in the HETMA Mighty Network, so HETMA members can reach me there as well.
That is awesome. And I will say, Britt's podcast, The Brave Space, is absolutely the best thing that is going in our space. If you're, if you're listening to nothing else, make sure you're listening to Brave Space on a regular basis. Yep. And Mr. Albright, how about yourself?
I am typically contractually obligated to say don't contact me and don't follow me, but this episode would fly in the face of that. So first and foremost, LinkedIn. It is where I will connect more professionally and personally. I do write an article 2-3 times a month that has nothing to do with AV. It's been more of a labor of love, but I've gotten it's been really helpful for me personally and professionally. And then of course AVNation, where you can find 2 or 3 podcasts that are worth listening to.
Absolutely. Definitely visit avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. And I would also recommend the things that Tim writes, as, like you said, if you want a little bit of a mentor by reading and you want to hear, some things like I would highly recommend that. So thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I would recommend to all of our viewers and listeners to reach out to these 3 people, because it's evident that they care, they understand this, and look forward to meeting with everybody. And with that, I'll say thank you for listening to this episode of HETMA Presents The Road to 10K. Stay tuned this month for Chair to Chair with Aaron Marmoran. And at the end of the month, this month in Higher Ed AV, we'll be talking about the news and developments of the industry over the past month. But for today, that's all the time we have for HETMA Presents The Road to 10K. Thank you for tuning in to HETMA Presents. This show is a production of Higher Ed AV Media. Please visit higherEdAV.com to learn more about this show and a host of others. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. We'll be back soon with another installment of HETMA Presents.